Spider-Man Brand New Day has a new casting announcement. That's right. Mark Ruffalo, the Avengers alumni, is joining the Spidey franchise, at least in the MCU version of the Spidey tale. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to speculate just a little bit.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. It seems that Spider-Man's Brand New Day is going to get a brand new cast member with Mark Ruffalo of the Avengers Age of Ultron, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame joining the franchise. Now, the last time the Incredible Hulk was seen was in She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and I'll discuss more on that later. But there are some questions lingering. What role will he play in the Spider-Man sequel? Sorry if I look a little off. I'm going to be reading this article from Nexus Point News, and they are claiming that they got the exclusive that led to this breaking news about Mark Ruffalo joining Tom Holland in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Nexus Point News can exclusively report that Mark Ruffalo is set to reprise his role as Bruce Banner in Spider-Man Brand New Day. It is currently unknown what role Banner will play in the story or whether he'll also be portraying his alternate green persona. NPN can confirm Bruce Banner's appearance will be much larger than a cameo, and Ruffalo will have a substantial role in the film. Spider-Man Brand New Day will be Ruffalo's 10th appearance in a mainland Marvel Cinematic Universe project, which will be followed shortly by Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, respectively. And then they go on and talk a little bit about the history of Hulk in the MCU and his comic background, and then they add Spider-Man Brand New Day is set to be the fourth entry in the MCU Spider-Man series and is set to be directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, with a script written by Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers. Tom Holland is set to return as the titular character, with Zendaya and Jacob Batalon returning in smaller roles. As reported by Apocalyptic Horseman on X, Michael Mando is in talks to return as Mac Gargan, reprising his role from Spider-Man Homecoming, although the status of his deal is currently unknown. Sadie Sink and Liza Collins-Zayas have also been cast in undisclosed roles. The film will begin shooting in late July in London and is expected to wrap in the fall. Spider-Man Brand New Day is set to be released by Sony Pictures on July 31st, 2026 as part of Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And you can read the rest of the article and the stuff that I left out at nexuspointnews.com. So I've already talked about Sadie Sink and what I think her role in the film will be, or at least who I think she should play in the film. But what about Mark Ruffalo? Now, this would have gotten me excited. Yes, Mark Ruffalo, he's a stuffed shirt, out of touch, elitist, left-wing Hollywood celebrity. Now, a lot of people like the previous actor who portrayed him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Richard Norton. And it is true, Richard Norton has more range and he played a different sort of Bruce Banner than Mark Ruffalo did. But it seems to me that Disney and Marvel Studios kind of adapted the Hulk to Mark Ruffalo instead of making him adapt to what Richard Norton had done. And I kind of understand that. I actually do like him as the Hulk. Like I said, I'd like Richard Norton better, but I'm not a big Ruffalo hater as far as the role. However, he has one strike against him besides, like I said, his incoherent whinings on social media. That is his role in Mickey 17. Now, I'll have a review about Mickey 17 coming out on my new website, studiojakemedia.substack.com, very soon, but just to give you a preface, he was the worst thing about that film. He did a terrible job. He kept trying to do these affectations that he would keep in one scene, but then he'd go back to talking normal in another. He was belligerent, and it seemed like he was mugging the film. And also, that whole movie was just terrible in general, but he was the worst thing about that film. So normally I'd be like, oh, Spider-Man and the Hulk, that's like a classic Marvel team up. You see that in the comics a lot, especially in like the 70s and the 80s and so on. You would see them work together very consistently or work against each other. In fact, when Spider-Man was first asked to join the Avengers, and I don't know if the story is still canon or not because Marvel, like DC, has done so much finagling with their canon, but his tryout for the Avengers was they wanted him to capture the Hulk. He had gone on another rampage, but then when Spider-Man confronts him it didn't work out that well because he ended up just feeling sorry for the Hulk and letting him go. And so he wasn't allowed to join the Avengers. Now, of course, later he would join the new Avengers and then the Avengers proper eventually. In fact, he became the last Avenger standing during the Avengers versus X-Men story arc. I digress on that. Now, will Ruffalo's poor performance in Mickey 17 completely shut me out of the movie? No. That movie is already doing a good job at itself as of its title. For those of you who don't know, and I've talked about this in a previous video, Spider-Man Brand New Day is one of the worst Spider-Man story arcs of all time. It completely ruined the character, and they continue to do that throughout the years. That standard that terrible storyline set continues to go. The effects, the Marvel editors refuse to retcon it or make it all a dream or just repair it at all for whatever reason. Ego. But my point is, with Mark Ruffalo coming on board, I'm going to put aside my disinterest in the title as well as my hesitation because of his recent performance in Mickey 17. And let's just say I restore my excitement for this crossover. What role should he play? This is just my opinion. He should not be Professor Hulk. Now, if Matt Gargan is the villain, this will kind of change this, but I think they need to do a different villain besides Scorpion. What they need to do is instead introduce a villain that can manipulate the Hulk. Maybe bring back Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, or do a villain like Joystick or maybe Venom, and instead it activates the Savage Hulk, and Spidey has to stop him from rampaging through New York. But Jacob, they already did that in Avengers Age of Ultron and The Incredible Hulk. Okay, whatever. It's been years since those movies came out. But I think that would be a good story arc. So Peter has to put his science to work, and he has to work with other allies in order to stop the Hulk from completely rampaging and destroying New York City. I think that would be good. Now, there are rumors that maybe Bruce Banner is going to replace Tony Stark as Peter's mentor. Personally, I don't think they need to go down that route. They've already done this twice with Doctor Strange and Iron Man. Let Peter be his own man. He doesn't really need a hero mentor anymore. He has been through it all. He's seen death and destruction. He's gone into space. It's good for him to be his own hero. They can either do a team up or they should do Hulk as the antagonist sort of thing. Let me know in the comments section below. What do you think? How would you like to see the Hulk interact with Spidey in this film? I'm very curious about that. But before I go, I wanted to make one more thing noted. I don't think it's going to make its July 2026 release date. Why? Because Avengers Doomsday got delayed until December 2026. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a long time before we get another MCU film after the Fantastic Four, The First Steps. And the reason for this is you could say, well, Jacob, why would that matter? Because Spider-Man Brand New Day is supposed to be set in between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. So either they're going to rewrite the script suddenly and make it where it's just a standalone story that happens to take place or during some of the events of, say, Fantastic Four, First Steps, or the Thunderbolts. I don't know if they're going to do that, although Marvel has been notorious recently for rewriting scripts while they're shooting, which often makes for a modge-podge script like what we saw with Captain America, Brave New World, and apparently the Marvels as well. Now, hopefully, Mark Ruffalo will be unchained by everything that happened in She-Hulk Attorney at Law. They won't reference that in any way, shape, or form, and it will just focus on Spidey. Maybe that will free them up to edit the script a little bit. Whatever the case may be, I do hope that it does get released in July 2026 because I would like to see it. I want to have hope for it. I'm not as big a critic as Shang-Chi as a lot of other YouTubers are. My complaint about it was it felt like a Disney movie, not a Marvel movie. So hopefully that won't happen with Spider-Man Brand New Day. And they're just using the title kind of metaphorically and not saying, hey, we really like this story arc. Now, this movie may get a name change. We saw that happen with Avengers Doomsday. We saw that happen with the Fantastic Four First Steps. And of course, Captain America Brave New World, when they see the online backlash, maybe they'll change it. Personally, I think they should have just called it Spider-Man 4. After all, The Amazing Spider-Man only had 2 films, the Tobey Maguire films only had 3. So they should have just called it Spider-Man 4 and then just kept it going. They didn't need to do another subtitle. Or called it the Spectacular Spider-Man or the Sensational Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, something like that. One of the titles from the comics. They didn't need to attach a much hated story arc from the comics. So, yeah, I think it's going to get delayed. If they're smart, they'll name change it. And if they're smart, Hulk will be the antagonist in this film with a Spidey villain kind of lurking in the shadows. That is what I would like to see, but we won't know until more information comes out. If you like that video, be sure to give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment, tell what you think, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, head on over to my new website, studiojakemedia.substack.com, where you can read most of my articles for free, or you can sign up for a subscription. Different tiers unlock different perks, including getting to choose a topic that you would like to hear about on this channel. Rules and limitations apply. And if you want to support me even more, on my website, you can go to the Buy My Books section where you can purchase one or all 4 of my novels. They're all available on Amazon, and you can leave them a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. If you want more information about my writings, head on over to studiojakemedia.locals.com. It's my writing page where I post some of my articles from my website, as well as put exclusive articles about writing and the writing process. Plus, you can read my poems and short stories. So thank you in advance for heading on over to my website and my locals community. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, right here on Studio Jake.
Cause I've been living life right like I